So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. My name is Kayla Rogers, and I'm an Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Women's Fund. For those of you who are not familiar with the Women's Fund, we are a not-for-profit organization located in Houston, and our mission is to provide women and girls with the tools that they need to be advocates for their health. So we do this through focused seminars like today's presentation, as well as curriculum-based classes and publications. Our classes and our publications are free. If you're interested in PDF versions of our publications, you can find them on our website. I've linked it here below. And you can also request physical copies of our publications there as well if you are interested. So today we are very lucky to have Heather Scholl here. She's going to give a presentation over simple exercises every trainer does to stay fit and heart healthy as a part of our Heart Health Awareness series. A little about Heather. She is a social entrepreneur with a passion for building communities that connect like-minded people who haven't yet found each other. She is the owner of the Villages Gym and the founder of Hustle for Heart, a concierge cardiac rehab program. Heather lives in Houston with her musician husband, Derek, and their wild, entertaining twin boys. Wow. Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. You sound like a very busy woman, and we are very excited for this presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. When I say crazy, I mean crazy. Those boys are wild. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk to you guys at Women's Fund and all your followers, and especially about heart health. It's something that's I think it has been a part of my life my whole life, but not something that was a focus until I really was a few years into my career in my 20s. As you said, I'm the owner of the Villages Gym, and I started out as a trainer and still train some, but health coaching has always been something that I've enjoyed. And in my 20s, I was working with a hospital in a small town called Hamilton, Texas, to build a cardiac rehab program. And a couple years ago, a cardiologist who's a member here at our gym popped his head in and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about adding cardiac rehab?" Which was just a God moment, right? I mean, I thought that is just wild. I worked with the doctor and nurse on that in Hamilton, Texas, and they really built it. I was in my 20s, so I watched them, but and now here I am doing this on my own, and it's really important. Heart health, I think, doesn't get enough attention. It's the number one cause of death in our country and worldwide. 1 in 3 women die of something heart related, heart disease related. That's huge. I mean, we all have a grandmother and a mom, right? That's it. It's one of the 3 of us, right? It might not be exactly one of the 3 of us, but it's a real thing that we all need to deal with. And the interesting thing that I find about it, and in my line of work, is the answers are pretty simple. We just have to do the work, and that's the tough part, is the work. And a lot of that is diet and exercise. And so that's what I've always worked on. And so heart health was an easy thing for me to fall into. I wasn't particularly working on heart health as a focus my whole life, but I was working on exercise with people my whole life. And so I really was tangentially working on that through working as a trainer, and I have loved that. So what we do here now at the Villages Gym, it's a medical fitness facility. You mentioned this. We have cardiac rehab now. We have cardiac prehab, and I'll briefly go over that since we're skipping on Heart Month here. But so cardiac rehab is a program that people get involved in once they leave the hospital after having a heart attack or a heart-related event. And they go into an exercise and diet program. There's education about smoking, diabetes, cholesterol, all the things that lead into them getting into that situation and the risk factors. It's a 36-session program that they go through. And then there's phase 3 rehab, which is exercising on your own with some guidance. And so we do that here. We also do prehab, and that is for people who want to avoid having a heart attack, who may have risk factors or existing heart disease. Their doctors are telling them to diet and exercise. I mean, we all know that that's a general rule, but sometimes we're a little nervous about it. We don't know how to get started. We want some guidance. Nobody wants to have a heart attack, right? And everybody knows that exercise is better, but it can be overwhelming when we have risk factors when we have stress in our lives. And so that's something that we like to help with prior to people having that. So here we have a registered nurse, a dietitian, an exercise physiologist, and all the great trainers who have been specializing in things like this for many years. So that's how I got involved in heart health. And as we talked through this, and I talked with you, Kayla, I really thought about, what's a good discussion for people to understand how to kind of take control of their own heart health, or continue to control that. And, like I said, trainers all do that because it's exercise, but not necessarily with the mental focus on how to help the heart. And I think I want to break that down a little bit. How does exercise help your heart? And of course, I promise to get to the exercises that all trainers do that are simple. So what happens with your heart, because your heart is a muscle, is it does what all muscles do in your body, although it is smooth muscle, which is different, is when your body or your muscles are under stress, they rebound from the stress by growth. So when you're working out, say your bicep, and you're sore, you get these little micro tears in your fibers, red blood cells rush in to repair that, and they build a little bridge and they make it a little stronger so that that doesn't happen again, right? And so that then builds the size and the strength of the muscle. Size has to do with genetics. You're not necessarily going to get big by exercising or lifting weights, but it does help build strength. So the same thing happens with your heart. And so I think we all know kind of the basics that exercise is good, but what actually happens to your heart is that the walls of the heart get thicker. And as the heart gets stronger, it requires less pump to get the same amount of blood flow out. So your heart can work less hard and get more blood out, which then of course reduces your resting heart rate. It reduces your blood pressure. So as your heart grows, which kind of sounds scary, but it grows in a good way. Those walls get thicker, and then it doesn't have to work as hard. And so that's what's actually happening on the inside of your heart when you do any cardiovascular activity. And then also with weight training with the other muscles in your body, it's very similar. So that's the direct sort of what happens is it pushes more per beat. And then the long-term benefits of exercise, one of the great things, I always say most people are in the gym for weight loss, but a lot of what happens is you got long-term benefits that your heart maintains, as well as the rest of the muscles in your body. So you can, if you just diet, you can lose weight pretty fast, right? You don't eat for a week. I don't know anybody that can do that, but if you don't eat for a week, you lose weight pretty fast. But if you're not exercising and doing something with your muscles and your heart to maintain that, as soon as you start eating again, you start gaining weight again. But as you maintain your muscle strength and your heart strength, you can sustain for longer without having so much focus on that crash diet kind of format. So, but also long-term for things like surgeries and other health related things. And we all know this from COVID, of course, a lot of heart related issues and comorbidities came into this COVID conversation. And now more than ever, I mean, we want to be prepared for the unexpected, mentally, physically. And when you're forced to no longer exercise, no longer be around people and all this, gosh, you really want that back. So a lot of this really is prevention and long-term benefits. The long-term benefits of taking care of your heart, you're more resistant to fatigue overall because your muscles can maintain that longer. The growth of your heart, like I mentioned, so your heart is actually, the walls are thicker and it's stronger, so it can do a better job with less work. And then again, that decrease in your resting heart rate and your blood pressure when it can push more blood per beat. So that's just a little breakdown on what's actually happening on the inside when you do exercise. And, when it comes to exercises that we all do as trainers, we all do things that we can do anywhere. So a gym is not required to exercise. I think we all know that. The great thing about a gym is you've got the right face on, you got your game face, you got your outfits, you got your ponytail, whatever it is for you, you actually are dedicating time to go in and exercise and reap those benefits. So that's great. You have an exercise piece of equipment at home, I always joke that they're like they keep the hangers and the clothes. But it's harder to do that. But that said, you really can exercise anywhere. And I think that's the difference in maybe what the way trainers look at it and the way other people look at it is we really can do it anywhere. We don't have to be in a gym to do it. And I really want for everybody to look at it that way. Sure, we want you in the gym, but that's just so you get your mind right about what you're doing. But really, The exercises that we all do, and we're normal people like everybody else. We have all kinds of modifications and injuries and stuff we've done to our bodies that we've got to work around. But there's a few exercises that we all really do stick to, whether we're in a hotel or we're on the go. And I'll be honest, the gym is the office for us. So a lot of times we're choosing to not work out at the gym. Excuse me. So if you don't have anything but yourself, what do? Well, what we do is we choose some sort of cardiovascular activity that we enjoy. That's a really key piece of it for us. And, I'll be honest, I hear from a lot of people that just don't enjoy exercise. I find it somewhat hard to believe that they can't enjoy a walk, or that at least when they do it, they don't feel better afterwards, because that is science. I mean, endorphins are produced. Your body gets healthier. There are a lot of great benefits. You sleep better. There's a lot of great things that go along with exercise. So we always try to choose an exercise that's a cardiovascular in nature and that helps your body and your mind because you like it. We never want to make you do something that you don't like. It's pointless. It makes no sense to me to bring somebody in here and make them miserable, whether it's being sore and exercise they don't like, when you can do something you enjoy. And I'm here to tell you, walking counts. If you bought yourself a heart rate monitor on Amazon and got it zoomed over to you overnight and you put it on, you'd realize exactly how much it counts. And it really can be enjoyable. I also like to recommend to everybody something I call Netflix and Mill, not to be confused with Netflix and Chill. And all that is pick a show that you want to watch on Netflix or all these other platforms we have now, hop on a treadmill or a bike, and tell yourself, I am not allowed to watch this unless I am on my piece of equipment. And then just zone out. You don't have to go fast. You don't have to compete. You can relax and watch and enjoy yourself and really just dive into the exercise. It still works. It doesn't not work because you're enjoying yourself. And so I always want to help people find a way that they really enjoy. And that's one of my favorites, truthfully. I exercise outside of our gym a lot, but when I am here, I sit down and I watch something. I read a magazine, which I know makes some people sick, but whatever you can do. Bike riding works. So that could be in the gym or out of the gym. There's a lot of, there's not a lot of areas in Houston roads, but if you get a little out of town or have an access to an indoor bike, riding the bike, something like that. I know a lot of us trainers, some of us do that together. And some of these like Terry Hershey Park, some of these places that we have access to as well. And then yoga. And you guys, yoga can be as simple as stretching. It's not particularly cardiovascularly beneficial from a direct standpoint because your heart rate is not going to get that high when you're doing yoga, but it is relaxing, which has its own benefits, and it does wake up your body. For me, I look at cardiovascular activity or weightlifting as a conversation with your body every day. And if you're not having a conversation with your body every day, how in the world can you know what's going on in there? I mean, those of us who exercise regularly, even if it's walking, a walk every day for 20 years, you have a pretty good idea of what's not normal when you feel it, and you know more quickly when it's happening than if you're not exercising. So even yoga, something like that is beneficial. It's a focused, intentional work that tells you something about your body. Oh, that's tight today, or that's different today. And then swimming is great. That's another one that we all like. Also, if you're not racing in the pool, your heart rate is not going to get that high from a cardiovascular standpoint in terms of that being the stimulus. But because water has 7 to 10 times the resistance of air, it's resistance training. So it's really not cardio from the standpoint that you're moving quickly and that's what's getting your heart rate up. But also because the water has the buoyancy property and you're moving this way, it's easier for your heart to pump your blood laterally than fighting gravity. So your heart rate actually can go down just being in the water, but swimming is resistance training because you've got all that resistance with every movement that you make. So it's really great for resistance and heart training without being too cardiovascularly taxing, which I know, a lot of people find swimming relaxing, which is great. I mean, if you can relax and exercise, I mean, come on. Now you can't Netflix while you do that. So there's that. But other than that, at least you can enjoy it. So those are the things I would recommend from a standpoint that I think all the trainers that I've ever worked with in 20 whatever years of doing this, and those are some cardiovascular activities that we all turn to that they don't have to be class-based, they don't have to be competitive-based, they're accessible. The bike, of course, requires equipment, a pool requires water, but the other things you really can do on your own. And now for resistance training, there's a few things that we all do and I think we coach people to do on their own, whether it's brushing your teeth, where you're going. If you're not able to have focused exercise every day because you're busy, whether that be professionally busy, family busy, I know, I know both of those. Sometimes it is in the shower, brushing your teeth, on the way to the mailbox. And the first one of those that we do for core work is plank. So I thought I would be out in the big gym today, but I'm not. I'm in my office, but I can still show you. So a plank is where you have your body is parallel to the floor, and you can either be on your elbows here. Let me show you here. No, this is not a plank. I'm standing up. Or you can be high like this. I'm gonna move my computer for you. And you'd be in a plank with your legs straight out behind you, or you can be up on your hands. So you can be up standing, in a position with your toes on the floor with your hands straight out. And something like that is a timed exercise. So you would do that. And again, the gravity is the resistance that you're getting there. And so it will get your heart rate up. It's more of a resistance exercise than anything else. But remember, that's still going to work your heart and your muscles. And you can modify that by time. You're not going to weigh more or less. So you can't really modify the weight on that or the resistance on that. What you can do is go for shorter or longer time. The longer the lever arm here, the longer your arms are there, the easier that is. The lower you get to that gravitational pull on your elbow, the more challenging it's going to be. And so that's something that I know we've all done somewhere. Sometimes it's my kids' punishment sometimes. Can I say that out loud? I'm like, everybody get down, drop and give me a plank, or drop and give me 10. Of course, they like it. They don't really think that's real punishment. And then also core work is really important for everything. It's important for how you breathe. It's important for how you balance. That's something that we deal with a lot around here. And you'll be surprised how quickly balance goes when you don't have some kind of focus on that. And a lot of balance just comes from that core area. And the core is not just your ab muscles, it's your lower back. It's a lot that goes on here. It's your diaphragm. There's a lot of things that go into core. And so a plank is very helpful for that. And again, extended arms or bent arms for that on the floor. And then of course, everybody knows the sit-up. The sit-up's tough. The sit-up is tough on the back. It's tough on a lot of other things. So we start with a plank and then we move to a sit-up or a crunch. So of course, that's something you can do anywhere. You can modify. You can do that standing. We all know what a typical crunch looks like, I think, and it starts on the floor. But for a lot of our cardiac rehab patients that are here, they start standing or sitting in a chair and doing something as simple as lifting their legs from a seated position. That's a big modification, and that has to do with whether or not you can or can't balance or what's going on there with your body, but that's an easy start. And then of course, the traditional position where you're flat on your back and your feet are flat on the floor with your knees bent, hands behind your head, and you're able to crunch up. And God love you if you can do a full setup all the way up. But there are all kinds of variations for any kind of back issues or anything like that that you may be dealing with, and I'm more than happy to answer questions for that, because core is a very important part of all of your health. The key part of that for cardiovascular health is you've got to stay mobile. I don't know how young everybody is on here, but we deal with all kinds of age ranges here. And being mobile is really important, and being comfortable while you're mobile is important. And so core strength is really part of that and part of protecting your back. So there's a lot of options there. Now, another exercise that's from the mat, usually you're in the same position that you would be if you were doing a sit-up or a crunch, is a bridge. This is another one that I think everybody I know, every trainer I've ever met, it's something we do on our own, and it's something that we do with everyone that we see. Feet are flat on the floor, back is flat on the floor, your knees are bent, so in a typical sit-up position, but instead of moving your torso, you press down with your heels. Instead of leading with your head and picking your torso up, that stays down, your heels stay down, and you lift by pressing your heels into the ground and lifting your hips up. So that's going to work the back half of your body. So if you lead with your head and your torso this way, you're going to work the front part of your body, your abdominal wall, your hip flexors. If you go the other direction and lift your hips, then you're going to work your butte and your hamstrings, which is the back part of your leg, your calves, everything from the back, and your lower back. And so that's another stabilizing exercise for core that like I said, all trainers do. There's a zillion modifications that you can do in the gym where you add weight or use a stability ball. And if you have all those things, please ask. I'm happy to tell you how to utilize that exercise with those things. You can put one leg in the air, you can put one leg down, or swap. And then, so a bridge is another great exercise that we all do. And everybody's dreaded squats. I don't typically start people out with a lunge. It's a little bit of a complicated exercise. And so it's something that you want to be doing with a little bit of guidance where you know exactly where your legs need to be. But a squat is really basic. And, you know, I always use the Elvis comparison. You don't want to be able to not get up. Or you never want to sit down and not figure out how to get up. One of the key things from an independent standpoint is you always want to be able to stand up without using your hands, right? So, and I don't mean from the floor, but from a chair. I see a lot of people do this. Try not to do that. Try to use your body weight and your legs to stand up and sit down. And a squat's really simple. You can do it in the air. You can do that with the chair, but even just as long as you're standing, you can sit, and you always want to keep your knees behind your toes and make sure that your buns are going backwards. So if you want to put a chair behind you and sit down and tap that, it almost feels like you're going to tilt back. So squats are a really great cardiovascular exercise as well. Now, I was mentioning with swimming, your body is parallel to the ground, so your heart does not have to work as hard because it's not fighting gravity to pump blood throughout your body. A squat is completely different. You're using major muscle groups in the lower half of your body, and as you move, your heart has to pump blood up and down quickly. And so that's why a lot of times too, we stand up fast and you get that dizziness feeling. You know, your body's not ready for you to do that. And so practicing squats is a great idea. Like I said, you always want to be able to stand up after you sit down. Maybe Thanksgiving is an exception, but other than that, a squat is a very basic exercise that, again, like all these, you know, there's plenty of variations, modifications, add weight, a one-legged squat. I mean, it just goes on forever and ever. You can also do a wall squat, which means, or a wall sit, which means you literally sit on the wall. I'll show you here. So you just slide down the wall. We all have walls in our house, right? So there's no excuses. And you just sit on the wall. So your knees are out in front of you over your heels. Your shoulders stay on the wall over your hips. And that's a timed exercise as well. The higher you are, the easier it is, and you never want to get your hips below your knees. That's another really great exercise that anybody can do if you have a wall. And really great cardiovascular work there on the squats because of like I said, the work that your heart has to do in order to pump blood up and down, and your legs are your major muscle groups. I think everybody that comes in to start to work out always says, gosh, my legs are so strong, but my upper body's really weak. Well, listen, guys, we walk around with our legs every day. So that's pretty normal. It's pretty typical that our legs are much stronger. But we've got to keep that. That is what keeps us cardiovascularly fit, is really keeping our lower body moving and moving with resistance as well. So when you're using the squats or the wall or the chairs, you're going to get great cardiovascular work. Another great one for lower body, this is always my toothbrush exercise, is just calf raises. And so all that means your heels you're standing flat footed and you're holding onto something to brace, and then you're just raising up on your toes. That one's pretty simple. I get lots of people to say, how do I get my calves bigger? Sorry, I can't. Again, we walk around on them all day long. They carry us around, and that's very genetically driven. That's just a little side fun note from a trainer, but they do a lot of work every day, but it's still a great exercise also to work on the flexibility there and that heel. But calf raises is a great one. Again, that's our toothbrushing exercise at home. And then push-ups. So I know that push-ups get a bad rap. So do squats. So do all these things that use our body weight. But because you can do them anywhere, I mean, like I said, trainers, this is what you'll see us doing at the park, right? All these exercises. And push-ups can be done on the floor, just like you see those horrible full screaming military push-ups get done, or you can do them on the wall. There's a lot of ways that you can get these done without hating them. I really don't want you to hate stuff. I want you to be able to do it and feel like you want to do it and not hate it. And you can start really easy. Like I said, you can do them on the wall. Literally, you just get in a push-up position with your hands on the wall. And I always coach a traditional push-up, which is a wide stance outside of your shoulders, so that you're really working a lot of that chest muscle and not getting too tight and putting compression on your shoulder there. So hands wide, up and down. Obviously, you can do those on the floor. You guys have probably seen those a million times. But you can do those on the floor. You can do them standing up. You can do them from your knees. There are a lot of modifications for those as well. But they're really great chest exercise. Anytime you're using your body weight, you have a really good guide for what your fitness level is. You know, when you start adding weights in the gym, you start adding machines, you know, you're really only measuring that against the machine, and every one of those machines is going to be different in any gym you go to. Your body stays the same, right? Relatively speaking. So you can always know, okay, I performed a little better at that today, or I was able to do more of those today. So I always encourage people to, even if you're exercising otherwise, add some of these body weight exercises that you can do anywhere and really understand about your own body, kind of where you are. And that doesn't mean where you are compared to everybody else. Well, how many can you do? How much can you do? It's not that. It's how are you feeling? You should be able to perform all of these exercises in some way, even if you have some kind of a knee thing or a shoulder thing. There's always going to be an option. And so, these are things that we all do in order to kind of keep up with where our body is. And, we've all had those moments where you go, oh my gosh, whether it's positive or negative, like, oh, I used to be able to do that pretty easily. Or, the opposite is, oh, that used to be hard for me. I'm glad I've been exercising. And so that's a really nice thing that you have when you do these kind of exercises. And, silly gym people we sometimes do have these like push-up contests and, crazy things like that are fun for us. But it's a much better guide if you're using your body for a general fitness kind of test for yourself to understand, how well is my heart doing? How well is my body doing? Am I able to comfortably do a squat? I would say that for these exercises, we went over the plank, the squat, push-up, calf raises. You should be able to do 3 sets of 12 of these without a lot of discomfort. Now, you can do 12 and then take a long break and do 12 more, not like a day's break, but a few minutes and go back to it. But you should be able to comfortably do that with your own body weight without feeling like you need to wait until the next day. It's also a great guide for you to know when you're talking to your doctor. I mean, different doctors have different levels of investment in these conversations, but I think a lot of people want to know, how am I doing? How is everything doing? And beyond the blood test, I would love to see everybody have a good idea of how they're doing by knowing, right? By having that daily conversation with the body. And maybe it's walking 3 days a week and trying some of these exercises on the other 2 days. I take off 2 days a week anyway. I try to do something. I know like Wednesdays is my walk day. So that's kind of feels like a relaxed day for me. That's my Netflix and meal day, if you will. But yeah, so those are just some exercises that I say simple. I actually, Kayla and I talked about, I think I started with the word easy, and I was like, oh, let me change that, because I want to be clear. They are simple to understand. They're not always easy to do. So I want to be clear about that for everybody. And if you have questions about these exercises, about how to understand where your level of fitness is, where your cardiovascular fitness is, I would love to help you with that. Love to answer any questions that anybody has, or how to do these exercises. I'm here to help. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I just started trying to be more physically active on a regular basis. So when you were talking about things like the plank, and I'm like, oh, I hate planks. Not hate, but they're not my favorite thing, or especially push-ups. I could relate to that one. But yes, so
I know.
We're going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. You can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question. You can place it in the chat if that is easier for you. But I will go ahead and get started with the first question. So a lot of exercise routines involve a warm up and a cool down. Can you talk a little bit about why those are important, especially for your heart?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be honest, it's not going to kill you if you don't do them, right? I mean, some people go right in and they don't do a thing. It's not about being right or wrong on that. Warming up your body really does help increase the blood flow to your muscles, so that when you pick up a weight or begin what is your exercise program, you don't cramp, you don't strain. That is the main benefit to those things. I know that for my clients, even if they're running late, I always tell them, you still have to get on the treadmill. You still have to hop on a bike. You have got to do something, because for them, making it up the stairs and all the way down the hall as fast as they can when they're running late feels like a warm up. A lot of us run our lives like that. I know I do too. And so sometimes the warm up is really about settling into and getting your mind right for the exercise that you're about to do. But really, from a scientific standpoint, a lot of that has to do with making sure that your body is ready to exercise. You know, like anything, like when you get a knot in your back and you need a massage, that's a lack of blood flow through a space, right? So we want to make sure that as we're moving and as we're going into isolating movements, is what happens in the gym. You know, if you do a bicep curl, you're working one muscle, but you really need everything to have an even amount of blood flow so that you're not in the middle of something going, oh my gosh, what is that? We don't want that in the gym. And then the cool down is just the opposite, right? You kind of want to calm your body down, let your heart rate come back down. And it's just never a bad idea to stretch at the end of your workout. You know, if you're really taxing yourself, you are going to be sore. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So we want to work on that. Soreness also promotes blood flow throughout your body. So that's important.
Thank you. So a question here from the chat. How long should you hold a plank? So maybe for like someone who's beginning, someone who feels a little more comfortable, and then, you know, someone who is a regular exerciser.
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. I think that's kind of where I'm getting at. You're going to learn when I'm saying knowing your own body is so helpful because, you know, is there somebody in this world that can do a 5-minute plank? Yes. Is it me? No. Will it ever be me? No. Will I ever try? No. So I would say the best way to guide yourself through an exercise in the beginning, you know, I suggested 3 sets of 12 of something, you know, and timing your planks. That may not be where you start. So a good guide for these exercises, whichever you choose, is you want to set out thinking, I'm going to do this 3 times. And I'll spare you the long science conversation about how, but I promise there's a reason. You want to go into an exercise thinking, okay, I'm going to perform this 3 times. And I want it to be challenging each time, but not so challenging that I can't do the next 2 or the next 1. And so that goes with how you choose your weights for an exercise, how you choose your repetitions for how many of something you're going to do, and how you choose your time for a plank. So planks are hard. Okay. If you've not done one before, then it's going to be really hard and also very unfamiliar. So when you're doing your first plank, I think if you've actually never done that before, I would start with 20 seconds and just see how your body feels, your form, you know, all these things that go into it. If you can do a 1-minute plank 3 times, you can keep going up on time if you want to, but I think you continue to do planks and add different exercises. The goal is not to see how long the longest plank is you can do. I would start with 20 seconds and work your way up, but really try to focus on the form that you're using and make sure that that form is proper when you're doing it, rather than compromising your form and doing it for longer. So I would say start with 20 if you've never done it before, and think that your goal is 3 sets of 1 minute.
So what are some of the biggest, I guess, mistakes or most common mistakes that you'll see with people in their plank position?
Plank position? Okay, so I wish I was in my gym here, but when you're in a plank position, again, you're going to be on your elbows. So you're just flat on your elbows like this, and you want your body to be flat across. So the most common that I would see would be the sag, where, you know, your midsection is sagging to the floor more than your shoulders, or the opposite, where you're moving up like a tent in order to hold that position. That makes it a lot easier. The moving up into a tent is not going to hurt you. Having your midsection sag does. Do not do that. You're really going to focus on keeping your shoulders tight. Your core is not the only thing doing the work in a plank, right? Your shoulders are holding you. Okay, so when you're in that position, when you're in this position, you are holding your body up. So you have your shoulders doing a lot of work there, and really you want to breathe out on the plank and hold position. You're going to be breathing out more than once, but you want to make sure you're maintaining that position and really using your diaphragm to breathe in and out and hold that position as long as you can. So I would not increase your time until you know you can hold the same position.
Okay, and then we have an audience member or participant who wants to ask over voice. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Carlos. Can you hear me well?
Yes, hey Carlos.
Awesome. I used to do a lot of martial arts back in the day, and I used to do a lot of different exercises, football, soccer, running, all the things. I've taken a long break, like at least 2 years now. Right before before COVID, I was just aerobic, like just running all the time. My question too, does the body remember, and is it easier to come back to it? Because I want to go back to it, but it's a lot of work. and I'm like, I want to know how I can transition into it again in an easier pace. I've always done exercises from a wide range martial arts, so it was very intense focus in breathing and
Right.
squats and everything. And then after that, I did a little bit of soccer and football too, so more like skill based and things like that, and then power
Awesome.
based with football. And then after that, I just started jogging more, so just learning to control my breathing and learn to strengthen the muscles in my heart and in my body, and then body like gym workouts, right? And
Yeah.
it's been like this, like my
Right.
exercise routine comes and goes throughout time. And but I'm wondering, is it easier to transition because you've had a history of it? Does your body remember? And if
Yeah.
so, what
So
would be
great.
the easiest way for me to come back into it? Would it be just jogging, walking, maybe doing some basic stuff I used to do? What do you think? And I
Yeah.
did a little bit of yoga too, so it was nice.
Yes, I love this, Carlos. Thank you so much for asking this, because this is perfect. So I talk about this a lot with my clients as well. Everybody's life looks like this, right? But the great thing is you've always exercised. So when you look at the grand scheme of things, your body really is adapted to exercise and adapts well to that. So kind of like I was talking about, and I know you didn't ask about weight loss, but I'm just using that earlier example. When you only use diet as a guide, it's a mess because it's just moves with every move you make because you eat all day long. Whereas exercise really sustains you for a lot longer period of time. So your muscles have memory, just like, that whole riding a bike example. Yes. Does it mean that your muscles remember what you were doing and are ready for it from a year ago? Probably not. You know that your heart's not quite ready. But what you can do based on what you have done before is, you said you mentioned jogging, martial arts, all those things. Martial arts, that's something that you could start in right away. Just start slow. It's going to be the same motions. It's going to be the same movements. The breathing techniques that you've learned don't change. Those are awesome. And a lot of stretching and things that they use in martial arts is awesome. And I know typically there is also a lot of conditioning kind of training. I would skip a little bit of that to start because sometimes it can be really intense. And I would increase your cardiovascular workout by using a guide from how you jogged and ran and walked before. I would do interval training. I would start out your first day and go for a walk and time it and see how you feel. Don't push yourself, really just see. My ideal situation for you would be, let's say I'm going to walk for 30 minutes and I want to feel good about it. And you may get done and go, okay, I can do a lot more than that. I can do that. So for me, I would use maybe like Memorial Park, because I know that distance doesn't change. So for me, the way I gauge that, because I'm the same, right? I mean, life happens to all of us. We all went through Snowmageddon. We all went through COVID. Things come in that you can't have control over, and life gets busy. And so, anytime I ramp up, I just go, okay, I'm going to do this distance and see how long it takes. Or I say, I've got this much time. I'm going to see how far I can go. And then just every time take note of that and really try to improve upon that every time. And then same thing, like I said, with your martial arts, or you mentioned gym training in there as well. The motions are the same. Just really take down the intensity and then build from there. And I'm glad you asked that, because I do think a lot of times people jump in and think, okay, well, I know I haven't done it, but I used to run 3 miles, so I'll go do that. And it's miserable. And they don't want to do it again, right? So find something that's really comfortable and enjoyable at this point. You know how exercise makes you feel. And really, I love that you've got enough perspective to know that it kind of goes up and down. That's how it will be for your life. And that's completely normal. So I really encourage you to get started again and know, like, oh, I'm about to hit that fun part where I like get fit again. I like that, and it'll fall off and it'll come back. But yeah, great question.
I appreciate it. I don't know if you know this. I just want to give you a tidbit of a nugget of gold. The Oculus Quest 2, the VR headset, they're using them more often to do aerobic and like physical activity because you are moving a lot. Like there's what's it called?
Oculus. Want to write that?
Oculus Quest 2. There's an exercise app in there that's taught by real coaches, and they use virtual reality like simulation environments to make you feel very comfortable and exploration and just really on top of it. And they link it to data using like a Fitbit or any type of receiver, and then you get to see the actual data, how much you worked out, blood pressure, all that stuff. And it's really nice.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I wrote that down. I'll remember that. I love anytime they use technology to get people more physical, not less.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. That was a great question. And I feel like a lot of us, probably all of us here today, can relate to that, going through, we're really consistent and then maybe we fall off for a while and we want to get started again. So that was a great question. And the next question we have from the chat is, I have trouble getting up off of the floor. What are some good exercises to build up my strength so I don't have to crawl to my knees and hold on to something to get up?
Got it. What are you doing on the floor? Just kidding. Okay, no, this is funny. I just had this conversation with someone at our cardiac rehab on Monday night. Because one of the things that we know is that if you're unable to get up from a chair without using your arms, it's a sign of a lack of independence in terms of physical independence. And getting off the floor is another one. But listen, we all have stuff. I mean, the floor is not the place to be, right? I mean, it's hard on your knees, it's hard on your back, it's hard on your, all that. So more than anything, I mean, I don't think anybody I know regularly, other than maybe my 8-year-olds, I don't even know if it's them, gets up off the floor unassisted, as in you don't put your hands on the floor to get up or something. And that's this discussion that I was having with one of our clients' patients was, if you're on the floor and you're not on all fours and you want to get up, get on all fours and try to use your hands and then to press off the floor rather than using, what I would call a crutch, a chair or something next to you. And, I'm not sure what the specific challenges that you're having in terms of getting up, if it's your back or your knees or you're just not sure why. If I saw you do it, I would definitely be able to help you a little bit better. I'm not going to make you do that, but it's okay that you can't completely get from a seated position to a standing position. I mean, the floor is far down there, but I know like my husband, for instance, we have 8-year-old twins and it's hard for him to get off the floor. I mean, he's got knee problems and back problems and everything else. You never know by looking at him, but poor guy's wrecked his body with sports his whole life. So I would say instead of the first step would be to roll over to an all fours position and then try to push up off the ground and bring one leg up and then stand up from there. And again, if I could see you do it, I can help you. And I'm happy for you to message me or talk to me outside of the call and I can help you.
Awesome. Do you have a couple of exercises that you could recommend? I know you mentioned that core exercises are great for this, but strengthening the lower back.
Yes. Okay. The bridge is the most important. That is a really good one. I'm so tempted to like lay down on my desk and show you this. I don't know if it makes sense. Let me try to see if I can get this in a position where you can see. Oh gosh, I don't know, you guys, if I'm gonna be able to do that without completely wrecking this whole Zoom. You're gonna lay flat on your back and so the bottoms of your shoes are gonna be flat so that your knees are bent. So it's like what a typical sit-up position would be. So your back's flat with your arms straight and you press your heels into the ground and lift your hips up. So it's almost like a pelvic tilt, but you're really pressing up. That engages the small of your back. And the lower back, it engages your glutes, so those supporting muscles in your booty, and then your hamstring, which is the back of your legs. Those are excellent for your lower back, and your shoulders and your head stay down when you do that. Another version of that same exercise is to flip over onto all fours. And so your knees are going to stay directly below your hips. Your hands are going to be directly below your shoulders, just like we were talking about with the plank. And you're going to extend. I really wish I could be with you to do this. Your right arm and your left leg at the same time. So it's alternating sides. It can be a real mind game. I want you to know it's not just you, it's how it is because you're using both sides of your brain there, right arm, left leg, and then return to that original position and then do left arm, right leg. So that's called a quadruplex. And so that helps your spine with minimal rotation, but really activates your spine and your lower back as well. And then the other one I would recommend is laying flat on your belly, flat on your stomach on a mat. And definitely not on a bed or a mattress or anything like that because there's too much give. So you want to be on a mat on the ground and you want to rest your chin on your hands and you will leave your toes down. So you're flat and you're just lifting your torso and your head with you, your toes stay down. And you could do that right now from wherever you're sitting and you can see how that feels. So that also activates the back, just sitting up and down. You don't want to do it standing, okay, because that's going to pull on that lower back, but laying down or seated would be great.
Awesome. The next question that we have is, can you explain how or when a body plateaus?
Yes. Okay. I can. I love this one. Okay. So the way we train here is organized chaos for this exact reason. So what happens when your body plateaus? Think of it this way. If I said, okay, I want you to go out and run a mile right now and just make it happen, whatever that looks like for you. And you're like, okay, I haven't done that. Who knows, maybe you run 5 days a week, 20 miles a day. I don't know, but I'm just giving an example here. If you come back the next day and I say, okay, go do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Eventually it gets easy, right? Or at least easier. It may not be fast to get easy, but what happens is when we exercise the body doing the same exercise over and over, we reach a plateau, because what's happened is your body has adapted to the exercise, which is one of the absolutely most magical thing about our bodies. I talked about this in the beginning with your heart and your muscles. When you stress your muscles, the body sends in the relief and repairs them, but makes them stronger. So what happens on a plateau is you're not stressing your body enough anymore for there to be that stress response to increase the strength, or depending on your goal, you're losing body fat, whatever you're working on, but you're not stressing it enough anymore. So I always joke when somebody starts, it's always going to get harder, but it's going to feel better. It's going to feel easier. That's because we keep having to find a way to stress it. So what you want to do is make sure that you understand what you're doing for your workout and organize the changes that you make. So if you're going to say classes, you don't have a lot of control over that because somebody else is doing it. So usually what you do have control over is the amount of weight that you lift. If there's no weight in the classes, then you may want to add weight. I'm trying to think of the things that I do. But if you're not in some way increasing the stress or strain level on your body, you will plateau. It's got to do something different. And like I said, what we do here is organized chaos. So for 2 weeks, we do this, for 3 weeks, we do this, for 3 weeks. And, and then we kind of end it at 12 weeks and we go, okay, what kind of progress did we make? What are your goals now? And how do we adapt this program so that it works for you again? But we know for 3 weeks, you're doing same repetitions, similar weight every time, so that when we make the change, there's a difference and we can measure it. So if you're just kind of going and trying things, it's hard to know why you're plateauing, but generally speaking, it's because you're not stressing or straining the body enough to have an adaptation or a response. So that's kind of what happens in a plateau.
Well, that was a great question and a great answer. Okay. So next, I was going to ask if you could speak a little bit more about doing a squat. So because there are so many variations of a squat. Again, you mentioned it could be a body weight. It's something that you could do anywhere. So I've heard, you want to make sure your weight is in your heels. I've heard some people say you're supposed to squeeze your butt at the top. Other people say you're not. So what is the proper way to do a squat?
Yeah, great question. It's funny because it can be so simple and look like nothing. And then there's all these other little things that happen. So, and this is kind of an advanced question, which I love, because this is the kind of stuff that as a trainer, this is the stuff that we look at. We don't expect you to think about it or look at it. We just do it, right? So we just sort of guide like, okay, don't forget to breathe out. Don't forget to squeeze at the top, those kind of things. So let me say this, there's a few ways I want to make sure not to do it, because you can hurt yourself, especially if you have knee issues, back issues, things like that, which is a lot of what I hear from people when it comes to squats and lunges. No, I have a bad back. No, I can't do that. Well, if you're standing and sitting and getting up out of a chair anytime in life, you better be working on what that feels like. Otherwise, you're going to regress, and you want to be able to stand up and sit down on your own. So even though I completely understand you don't need to be holding a barbell on your shoulders and doing a weighted squat on a press machine, you need to understand how to safely protect your body. So on a basic squat, it's exactly what you said. You keep your weight in your heels. So the way the knee works, you got to remember on a squat, right? You've got your knees and your hips is what's bending, right? And so can you see that, Kayla? Can you see the squat part of my body?
Yes.
Knees and hips. Okay. I want you guys to be able to see this. You can't see my feet, but you want to keep your weight in your heels. The reason is if your knees go over, you know how big this bone is, this femur bone, and how big these muscles are. It's going to put a lot of pressure on your knee moving forward. You do not want that pressure behind your kneecap. And the other thing is you want to work your legs, not your joints. Okay, the joints help you do the motion, but in order to work your muscles, you need to keep the weight on your quads and in your glutes here. So when you keep your shoulder weight, your feet should be at least shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit more, toes straight. Now, again, there's lots of variations. This is a very basic squat. Toes stay straight. When you squat, don't think about going down, think about going back. So the first movement you make is your hips back. That maintains the weight in your heels and it allows you to start moving down. So from that position, then you go down. And again, watch your knees, because if you're not careful, your knees will go in front of your toes. You want to keep that back so the weight stays in your glutes and supports your lower back. Another thing is a lot of people say keep your back straight, which is very misleading. Okay, that doesn't mean keep your back straight. Okay, that doesn't mean keep your head parallel with the floor. That means your spine should be in a neutral position. So our spines are not straight. Our spines are curved. We have a little curve here in our neck and it goes back out here and then it comes in, as we all know, there in our lumbar spine. Okay, so you got cervical, thoracic, and lumbar, and it is curved. So when you do a squat, your weight stays in your heels. Remember, again, the first movement you make is back. So that keeps your weight in your heels and allows you to go down. And as you go down, your knees stay behind your toes and your chin stays over your knees. Okay, so you're not sitting back because that's going to put pressure on your lower back. Your buns should never be below your knees. Okay, you'll see a lot of deep knee squats. I say no. Oh, my rule in the gym is just because you can doesn't mean you should. So yes, maybe lots of people can do that. You will never catch me doing that. I don't see a reason to put your joints at risk. So that's kind of a basic squat. Weight in your heels, knees behind your toes as you move down, chin slides down over your knees, and you're not trying to keep your chin back. That straight back means you're going to allow your posture to come over your thighs as you squat.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So the next question that I have is, so for people who are maybe interested in using like some kind of fitness tracker, Apple Watches are really popular now. There's different apps and stuff like that. Is there a specific heart rate that you should aim for during exercise in order to have the benefits?
Okay. God, you guys have the best questions. Okay, this is so fun. Okay, so the answer is yes, but it's different for everybody. So this also goes with that daily conversation with your body. Anytime anybody comes that I work with or any of the clients in here, really the first couple of weeks is understanding how your body works. So if you have an injury or what should your heart rate be? I mean, we can't know until we know you. So a lot of the times, and this goes into, I was saying with the doctor, the best thing you can do if anything goes wrong is have information about yourself, right? And if you're not gathering that somewhat regularly, they have to start at 0 too. And so that's where you get all these, now we got to do this test and that test and this thing. And so when you don't know, they can't know. So as far as your heart rate goes, I would say there's lots of trackers, there's lots of things. Just choose something and go with it. And then you have a consistent measure against the thing that you use all the time. I've used a lot of different ones. I've used Fitbit. I've worn a heart rate monitor. I'm off on something that I love right now called Whoop. It's very data driven. I think Carlos dropped to go play with this Oculus Quest. He said that he would probably love this. It collects a ton of information and it's really science based. So that's for kind of science nerds like me who are really into that. A Fitbit's great. I think it's just an Apple Watch is great. The health app on your phone, if you have an iPhone, is great. I mean, we're so lucky to have so much technology at our fingertips. So what I would recommend doing is pick one. And if you want to ask me more specific questions about them, I'm happy to help you. Wrist tracking from a heart rate standpoint is going to be a lot, well, not a lot. It is less accurate than wearing a chest strap, but it's what's out there right now. And it's not wrong. It's not terrible. So just measure it against itself. And you should be able to gauge, well, this was harder for me today, and look at your heart rate and say, wow, it hasn't gotten that high, or I just must be more tired. So there's a lot that goes into heart rate. But generally speaking, you should have a consistent heart rate day to day. And again, that's one of those things, if you wanted to come in here and put on a heart rate monitor and let us kind of work with you on that, it's easy to do. But really it's about, I would suggest though, getting something and looking at it regularly, referring to it, and just even recording that somewhere. And usually things like the health app or Fitbit, it does it for you. You can kind of scroll through there and see. A healthy resting heart rate is anywhere from, I mean, can get as low as like in the 40s. I don't have that, but 60s to 70s, and that's even resting. I mean, it's not unhealthy. Excuse me. I have a particularly high max heart rate. That has nothing to do with health and fitness at all. It is the relationship between my heart, my lungs, and my muscles. So like, for instance, my husband's fit is his max is in the 160s, mine's in the low 200s. That's really high. But I've had it looked at, it's nothing, it's just high. And so again, that just has to do with the relationship you have. A more accurate measure of fitness is how quickly your heart rate returns to a resting rate after exercise. So you should have a quick return rate in terms of 2 minutes after you've stopped exercising, you sit down, you look at it, and it comes back down. That and consistency is a good measure. Once you have some numbers based on what you're used to seeing, that's usually what I ask for is, well, what's the highest you've ever seen? What's the lowest you've ever seen? And then another thing to note about that is if you have any high blood pressure issues and you're on medication, those actually limit your heart's ability to raise the heart rate. So for instance, I can't use that as a guide nearly as well for someone who's on a beta blocker or something like that as I can someone who's not. So that's something to also notice. Don't panic if it's low, but you're on something like that because it's going to limit your ability. So everybody's a little bit different on that.
Awesome. And then the final question that we have for today, it goes along with the question that I just asked, comes from the chat, and it says, doesn't age play a role in your heart rate while exercising?
It does. So there's an antiquated formula that somebody was using in a scientific trial many, many years ago, and he never intended for this to be used as a formula for something, but we still use it. That's what's used on all your trackers. It's 220 minus your age. And that gives you a general guideline for what your max heart rate should be. I'm 43, 220 minus my age is not the lower 200s, right? I'm not good at math, but it's not that. So it's not exact for everyone, but yes, it does play a role. Again, you have to know kind of what your own normal is to know how much it's affected. The higher level of fitness you have, that age is not going to affect you as much because you're aging out, you're exercising out some of that age. But yes, it does have a role in that formula for sure. But again, it has a lot to do with the relationship inside of your body, your oxygen uptake, your heart size. There's a lot that goes into that, but I'm not good at short answers, but yes, it does have a small role.
Oh my goodness, Heather, thank you so much. And I lied because I do have one more question.
Oh, yeah.
But I ask this at the end of all of our guest speaker presentations, and that is, if you could give one final piece of advice or one brief takeaway message that you want participants to leave with here today.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. I think the one thing that I would tell everybody here and that I tell everybody is you do have control of this. I think we all have to decide how much control we want of our health. It's great. You can do it. You can do something. You can do a little bit of something. I never know when I do these if it's all people who are interested in exercise, that's why they're here, or if it's people who are like, oh gosh, I know I need to do that. But I would encourage you and encourage to exercise, encourage your friends and family to do it. You really have a lot of control over your health, and your health is your independence. I mean, at 43, I'm not particularly worried about that for me, but I look at my parents and I look at my grandparents. It matters. I mean, you can do that for yourself. I think one of the most important self-care gifts we can give is exercise. It's one of the only things that when we do it, we are the ones who benefit. And it's not getting your nails done. It's not, having a drink. Those are great. I do them, but really exercise is about you and your health and your independence long-term. And I think that's really in your control. And I want everybody to feel empowered by that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. This was a wonderful presentation. In the chat, actually, someone shared that this was the most enjoyable presentation and they love your energy.
Oh, guys.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. So for anyone who has questions or comments, maybe after the session you think of something that you would like to ask, please email us at healtheducator@thewomensfund.org and we can work to get that answered for you. I am going to be sending out a follow-up email that's going to have a link to a survey. It is a short survey. We would really appreciate if you could take that, let us know how we did, what you liked, what we could improve on. And then finally, I have our website and our social media handles here. Please follow us on social media. We promote our events there. We post other posts related to health there as well. We have some presentations coming up to round out this week. So we have shopping on a budget tomorrow. We have mental health and nutrition on Friday. It's not listed here, but I will put it in the follow-up email. Saturday, we have a doc talk with Dr. Frenae LaCour Chestnut. She is going to be talking about COVID-19 vaccines, truth, myths, and question marks. So that is Saturday morning. I will send that in the follow-up email. And then next week, we have some presentations over shopping on a budget and a nutrition awareness series presentation as well. So I want to thank you all for joining us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Heather, thank you again so much. We really appreciate it. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, so much for your questions and your interest. I really love this.